Fog of Soul embraced the skyscrapers like a gray silk veil, but inside the ballroom of the Shilla Hotel, everything gleamed with the artificial intensity of 1,000 suns. Park Ji-won adjusted the diamond necklace that weighed on her neck like an invisible chain, watching the distorted reflection of her face in the champagne glass. At 28, she was the heiress to the Park Industries empire, a woman whose name appeared in business magazines alongside words like ruthless and visionary. But in that moment, surrounded by men in dark suits and women dressed in designer labels, she felt like a porcelain doll in a display case, beautiful and completely hollow inside. Ji-won, Chairman Kim's son, is waiting for you on the terrace, her mother whispered, with that smile that never reached her eyes. A smile that Ji-won had learned to imitate with perfection. He studied at Harvard. His family is very respectable, the word that defined her entire life. Respectable like the piano lessons she hated. Respectable like the business administration degree they chose for her. Respectable like the arranged marriage her family had been orchestrating for months, treating her future like a corporate merger where feelings had no place in the spreadsheet. Ji-won nodded, the movement as automated as her breathing. She walked to the terrace, her Louboutin heels echoing on the marble like a countdown. Outside, the cold October air cut her skin, but she welcomed the pain, something real amid so much artificiality. Chairman Kim's son was exactly what she expected. Polite, boring, talking about markets and stocks with the enthusiasm of someone reciting the phone book. She smiled, responded at the right moments, played her role with the precision of a veteran actress. But while he spoke, her eyes wandered across Seoul's horizon, that city she loved and that suffocated her at the same time. There was a part of her, buried under layers of expectations and responsibilities, that wanted to scream, that wanted to run, that wanted to be anything other than Park Ji-won, the perfect heiress. 3 weeks later, she found that part of herself again in a place she never imagined looking. Seoul University Hospital wasn't where people like Ji-won usually found themselves, but her best friend, Min-seo, had insisted she accompany her to a lecture on humanitarian medicine. "It'll be good for your soul," Min-seo had said, and Ji-won accepted, more out of boredom than genuine interest. The auditorium was packed with students and professionals, all with that gleam in their eyes of those who believe they can change the world. She sat in the back, half hidden, half invisible. Then he took the stage. Dr. Kwame Issei had a presence that filled the space effortlessly. It wasn't just his height or the breadth of his shoulders, but something deeper, a gravity that came from within. He was from Ghana, and his voice carried a musical accent that transformed ordinary words into poetry. He spoke about his experience treating patients in remote African villages, about medicine that went beyond drugs and technology, about healing with humanity. His eyes were dark and intense, and when he smiled, it was with his whole body, as if joy were something he couldn't contain. Ji-won caught herself leaning forward, forgetting to feign disinterest. There was something about him that disarmed her, that penetrated her carefully constructed defenses. Perhaps it was the genuine passion in his voice, so different from the empty conversations of her daily life. Or perhaps it was simply him, the way he existed in the world without apology, without diminishing himself. After the lecture, Min-seo dragged her to the reception. "You need to meet him," she said, and before Ji-won could protest, she was face to face with Kwame Issei. Up close, he was even more impressive. He had small scars on his hands, marks of hard work, and when he shook her hand, his grip was firm and warm. "Park Ji-won," she introduced herself in English, her voice coming out softer than intended. "Kwame," he responded, and his smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Did you enjoy the lecture?" They should have exchanged only a few polite words. He should have turned to the next guest. She should have left, returned to her world of luxury and obligations. But instead, they began to talk, and the conversation transformed into a dialogue that flowed with the naturalness of a river meeting the sea. He asked about her work, and for the first time, Ji-won heard herself talking about the feeling of being a prisoner in her own life, the words escaping before she could filter them. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I don't know why I'm telling you this. Don't apologize," Quaim replied, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her heart race. Sometimes we need to tell our truths to strangers because they don't expect us to be perfect. Those words lodged in her chest like a seed. They met again 3 days later at a small, discreet cafe in Hongdae, far from the curious eyes of Ji-won's social circle. She had told herself it was just coffee, just a conversation with someone interesting, nothing more. But when Quaim appeared, wearing a simple sweater and jeans, with that smile that illuminated his entire face, she knew she was lying to herself. They talked for hours. Quaim told her about his childhood in Accra, about the grandfather who was a traditional healer and who taught him that medicine was as much about listening as healing. He spoke about coming to Korea for a research fellowship, about feeling divided between two worlds, about the weight of expectation from his community that saw him as a bridge to a better future. "Sometimes I feel like I don't completely belong anywhere," he confessed, stirring his coffee. "In Korea, I'm the African. In Ghana, now I'm the one who left. It's like always being in the middle, never whole." Ji-won felt tears burning in her eyes. "I know exactly what you mean. I feel like I spend my entire life being what others need me to be. My mother wants me to be the perfect daughter. My father wants me to be the ruthless CEO. Society wants me to be the ideal wife to someone appropriate." She laughed bitterly. "Sometimes I wonder if there's a real Park Ji-won underneath all these masks." Quaim reached across the table and touched her hand lightly, a gesture so simple that sent a wave of warmth up her arm. "I see you," he said softly. "The real Ji-won. She's here in this moment, and she's beautiful." They began meeting regularly, always in discreet places, always being careful. Ji-won told herself they were just friends, but her heart knew the truth. Each encounter was a discovery. Quaim took her to a small art gallery in Itaewon where African artists exhibited their works, and she was mesmerized by the vibrant colors and powerful stories painted on the canvases. He spoke about kente, about adinkra, about how each symbol carried deep meaning, how African art was a living language. "In Akan culture, we have a concept called Sankofa," he explained, pointing to a symbol of a bird looking backward. "It means it is not taboo to go back and fetch what you forgot. It's about honoring the past while you move into the future." Ji-won touched the image, feeling something awaken inside her. "I think I forgot who I was," she whispered. "Or maybe I was never allowed to find out." In return, she took him to places in Seoul that tourists never saw. They walked through Bukhan Hanak village at night, when the lanterns cast dancing shadows on the ancient walls. She spoke about her grandmother, who used to tell stories about mountain spirits and magical foxes, stories her mother considered embarrassing superstition. "I used to love those stories," Ji-won said, "but I learned to hide that love. It wasn't sophisticated enough." "Why do we hide the parts of us that make us special?" Quaim asked, and Ji-won had no answer. Each moment together was stolen, precious. They laughed while trying to cook together in the tiny kitchen of the apartment Quaim shared with other researchers, making a chaotic fusion of jollof rice and kimchi that turned out strangely delicious. He taught her some words in Chui, and she loved the way the syllables danced on her tongue. She tried to teach him Korean calligraphy, and they ended up stained with ink, laughing like children. But beneath the joy, there was always a current of fear. Ji-won knew that what they were building was impossible in her world. Her family would never accept it. society would never understand. She came from a universe where marriages were strategies, where skin color mattered more than the color of the heart, where tradition was a cage lined with gold. 1 month after their first meeting, Yi-won was in her father's office when he dropped the news like a carefully wrapped bomb. The wedding with Chairman Kim's son will be in 6 months, he announced, without looking up from his papers. We've already booked the Shilla. It's a perfect union for our families. The floor seemed to disappear beneath Ji-won's feet. Appa, I don't love him, she said, her voice trembling. Her father finally looked at her, surprised. Love, Ji-won, you're not a child anymore. Marriage is about stability, about the future. Love comes with time, if you're responsible. What if I want more than responsibility? The question escaped before she could stop it. The silence that followed was cutting. Her father sighed, removing his glasses and rubbing his face. Suddenly, he looked tired, old. Do you think I married your mother for love? Do you think I had a choice? We do what's necessary, Jae-won. That's how our family survived, prospered. I can't let you throw this away for youthful idealism. That night, Ji-won went to Kwam's apartment unannounced, rain soaking her expensive coat. When he opened the door, concern immediately flooded his features. Ji-won, what happened? She collapsed into his arms, all the walls she'd built crumbling at once. They're making me marry someone in 6 months, she sobbed. I don't know what to do. I can't do this, but I can't lose my family either. Kwam held her tight, his hand stroking her wet hair. They moved inside, and he wrapped her in a blanket, making her tea with the gentleness of someone handling something fragile and infinitely precious. They sat on his worn couch, and Ji-won told him everything. The arranged marriage, the expectations, the suffocating weight of being Park Ji-won. What do you want? Kwam asked softly. Not what your family wants, not what society expects. What does your heart want? Ji-won looked at him, at this man who had somehow become her anchor in a storm. I want to be free, she whispered. I want to choose my own life. I want ... double quotes, she paused, gathering courage. I want you. The air between them shifted, charged with electricity. Kwam cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. Ji-won, I've been falling for you since the moment you asked your first question of that lecture. But I need you to understand what this means. If we do this, if we choose each other, it won't be easy. The world will push back. Your family will fight us. Are you ready for that? She thought about her life, the gilded cage, the endless performances, the slow suffocation of being someone else's idea of perfect. Then she thought about the moments with Kwam, the laughter, the honesty, the feeling of being truly seen for the first time in her life. I'm terrified, she admitted. But I'm more terrified of living a life where I never tried, where I never chose myself. Kwam kissed her then, soft and reverent, like a promise. And in that kiss, Jae-won felt something she'd never experienced before, hope. The next 3 months were a beautiful, terrible secret. They carved out stolen moments between Ji-won's obligations and Kwam's research. She began to change slowly, started pushing back in small ways against her family's demands, suggested modifications to the wedding plans that horrified her mother, showed up late to meetings with her fiancé. Her father noticed the rebellion but attributed it to pre-wedding nerves. Kwam introduced her to his friends, a vibrant community of African professionals and students in Seoul. For the first time, Ji-won experienced what it meant to be welcomed not for her name or wealth, but simply for who she was. They shared meals, stories, laughter. She learned about different cultures across Africa, realizing how much her education had failed her, how much the world had been reduced to stereotypes in her mind. One evening, at a gathering in Itaewon, An older Nigerian woman named Kiyamaka pulled Ji-won aside. "You love him," she said, not as a question but as a fact. Ji-won nodded, surprised by her own lack of hesitation. "Then you must be strong," Kiyamaka continued. "The world will try to tear you apart. They'll say it's about culture, about tradition, but really it's about fear. Fear of what's different, fear of change. But love that crosses borders, love that defies expectations, that's the love that changes the world." Those words stayed with Ji-won, becoming a mantra when doubt crept in. The breaking point came on a cold February evening, 3 months before the scheduled wedding. Ji-won's mother had organized an intimate family dinner, just the Parks and the Kims. Ji-won sat through it mechanically until Chairman Kim's son, her finance, made a casual remark about a recent news story about African immigrants in Seoul. "These people need to understand Korean culture better," he said dismissively. "They should adapt or leave. We can't compromise our values." Something inside Ji-won snapped. "What values?" she asked, her voice sharp. "The value of judging people by their skin color. The value of closing our minds." The table went silent. Her mother's face paled. Her father's expression darkened. But Ji-won couldn't stop. Years of suppressed truth came pouring out. "I won't marry him," she said, standing up. "I won't spend my life pretending to be someone I'm not. I won't sacrifice my happiness for your business deals." "Ji-won, sit down," her father commanded, his voice doubly quiet. "No." The word felt like liberation. "I'm in love with someone else. Someone who sees me, who values me for more than my last name." "And I choose him," her mother gasped. "Who is this person?" "His name is Kwame. He's a doctor from Ghana. He's brilliant and kind and everything I never knew I needed." The explosion was immediate. Her father's face turned red with rage. Her mother began to cry. Chairman Kim and his family left hurriedly, the business alliance crumbling before their eyes. But Ji-won felt strangely calm, like she'd finally stepped out of a nightmare into reality. "If you do this," her father said, his voice shaking with fury, "you're no longer my daughter. You'll be cut off. No inheritance, no family, nothing." The words should have terrified her. Instead, they felt like a key turning in a lock. "Then I guess I'm not your daughter anymore," Ji-won said softly. "But maybe I can finally be myself." She walked out of that house and didn't look back. Kwame's apartment had never felt more like home. When she told him what happened, he held her while she cried, not tears of regret, but of release. The next weeks were a whirlwind of logistics. Ji-won moved into a small apartment, taking only what she could carry. She withdrew from Park Industries. Without her family's backing, she had to start from scratch, but for the first time, the future felt like hers. The backlash was brutal. Korean media exploded with the scandal of the Park heiress abandoning her family for an African man. The comments online were vicious, filled with racism and hatred that made Ji-won's stomach turn. Her phone rang constantly with reporters, with distant relatives condemning her choice, with former friends who suddenly didn't know her. But there were other voices too. Messages from young Korean women saying she inspired them. Emails from interracial couples sharing their own struggles and victories. A letter from her grandmother, secretly delivered, saying she was proud that Ji-won had chosen love. Kwame faced his own challenges. His fellowship was suddenly under review. Colleagues who had been friendly became distant. He received threatening messages, warnings to stay away from Korean women, but his community rallied around them, providing support, friendship, and unwavering belief in their right to love. 2 months after Ji-won left her family, she sat across from Min-seo at a modest cafe, so different from the luxury establishments they used to frequent. "Do you regret it?" Min-seo asked gently. Ji-won thought about the question. Her life was unrecognizable now. She worked at a small nonprofit focused on cultural exchange, making a fraction of what she once had. She lived in a tiny apartment. She'd lost her family, her social status, her entire former life. Not even for a second, she answered honestly. For the first time, I'm living instead of performing. I'm building something real. Minzeo smiled, squeezing her hand. You're braver than anyone I know. That evening, Ji-won and Kwame walked along the Han River, the spring air soft around them. They'd been talking about the future, about possibilities. My fellowship ends in 3 months, Kwame said. I've been offered a position at a hospital in Accra. But there's also an opportunity here, if I want to stay. Ji-won's heart clenched. She'd known this moment would come. What do you want? I want to build a life with you, he said simply. But I won't ask you to leave your country, just like I won't let you sacrifice everything for me. We need to find our own path. They stopped walking, facing each other as the city lights reflected on the dark water. What if our path is something new? Ji-won proposed. What if we spend time in both places? Your work is important in Ghana, but you could also do research here. I could establish exchange programs between Korean and African institutions. We could build bridges instead of choosing sides. Kwame's eyes lit up. A life that honors both of us. Sankofa, Ji-won said, using the word he'd taught her months ago. We carry our paths forward while creating something new. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. You really were paying attention? To everything, she whispered. 6 months after leaving her family, Ji-won stood in a small courtyard in Seoul, surrounded by friends from both their worlds. No lavish hotel ballroom. No hundreds of guests. Just the people who mattered, who'd supported them through the chaos. They'd chosen to have 2 ceremonies. Today was a small Korean celebration, respecting the traditions Ji-won still loved while making it their own. Next month, they would travel to Ghana for another ceremony, where Ji-won would be welcomed into Kwame's family and community. As Ji-won walked forward in a simple but beautiful hanbok, she caught sight of an unexpected figure in the back. Her grandmother, defying family orders, had come. Their eyes met, and the old woman smiled, nodding her approval. Kwame stood waiting for her, dressed in traditional Korean attire for this ceremony, just as she would wear Ghanaian dress for theirs. When she reached him, he took her hands, and the love in his eyes made her believe that anything was possible. The officiant spoke about love that transcends boundaries, about the courage it takes to choose your own path. But Ji-won barely heard the words. She was too focused on this moment, on the man before her, on the life they were choosing together despite everything. I used to think freedom meant escaping, Ji-won said during her vows, her voice clear and strong. But you taught me that freedom is choosing. Choosing authenticity over approval, choosing love over fear, choosing to build something new rather than inherit something broken. You saw me when I couldn't see myself, and you gave me the courage to become who I was always meant to be. Kwame's voice was thick with emotion when he spoke. In my language, we say "aroyuwa," which means love is trouble, but it's a trouble worth having. You've shown me that home isn't a place, it's a person. You've taught me that the bravest thing we can do is be vulnerable, is choose each other when the world says we shouldn't. You've made me believe in love that changes everything. When they kissed, their friends erupted in cheers, a beautiful mixture of languages and cultures, celebrating a union that should have been impossible. At the reception, as Ji-won danced with Kwame, she saw her reflection in a window. She barely recognized herself, not because she looked different, but because for the first time, the woman looking back was real. No masks, no performances, just Ji-won, flawed and free and completely herself. Her phone buzzed with a message. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. It was from her father. Your grandmother showed me photos. You look happy, truly happy. I don't understand your choice, but I'm trying to. Maybe one day we can talk. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a crack in the wall, a possibility of healing. Jiwon tucked the phone away, choosing to focus on this moment, this joy. The future would unfold as it would. She and Quame would face challenges, cultural misunderstandings, racism, the constant work of building a life across two worlds. But they would face it together. As the night deepened and the celebration continued, Gun pulled Quame onto the terrace, wanting a moment alone. Seoul spread before them, vast and complicated and beautiful. "Do you think we're crazy?" she asked, leaning against him. "Absolutely," he replied, wrapping his arms around her. "But the best things in life are a little crazy." "I love you," she said, the words still new and precious on her tongue. "I love you too." "Woda Omi," he responded in Chui, then in Korean, Saranghae. They stood there, between languages, between worlds, between the life Ji-won had left and the one they were building together. The chaos of their love had cost them so much, but it had given them something infinitely more valuable, the freedom to be truly themselves together. In the distance, the city hummed with life, full of other people making their own impossible choices, fighting their own battles for love and freedom. And in that moment, one understood that their story wasn't just about them. It was about everyone who'd ever had to choose between who they were told to be and who they truly were. About everyone who'd loved to cross boundaries. About everyone brave enough to say that love, real love, was worth any chaos, any struggle, any supreme trouble. Because in the end, the only state worth fighting against was the state of being untrue to your own heart. And Giwon and Quame had declared their independence, not against a country or a system, but against every force that tried to tell them their love was wrong. They had chosen each other, chosen freedom, chosen a future that was uncertain but entirely their own. And that, they both knew, was the most beautiful rebellion of all.